Join me in welcoming our host this afternoon here in the Legislative Office Building, Assemblywoman Patricia Fahy.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for doing this. It's always an honor to join folks like yourself. I will say I was a few minutes late because I was in the chamber meeting with an international group, the International Center, and it was a group of women from across the world. And this was one of their primary questions. And in fact, I used an example. We were talking about how a bill becomes law. And I was there with Assemblyman McDonald, and we said, well, sometimes there's a lot of bills that go to die in the Senate. And I used the example of campaign finance reform here just in this state. And where we have passed various versions of campaign finance reform for the last 20 years, since 1986. I mean, there've been a number of versions, but we see how difficult this is even for New York, and now we see what's going on at the federal level. And I was looking through some materials because I've had constituents come in, thankfully, saying, wow, where did things get this crazy and how out of whack, and it seems to be getting even further out of whack now. And there was a recent article he brought in from the Washington Post that said, of congressional candidates, 91% of the time in recent years, the better financed candidate wins. And we know this on a host of issues. We know just on our energy policies, whether it's fracking or other issues, we know that money really influences matters. And on every level, we see it on every level. I often use myself as an example. When I was first making the decision to run 2 years ago, just 2 years ago now, I was not an elected official at that point, and I was running at that point. 3 other elected officials were the primary candidates I was stepping into, so they already had a nest egg. They already had a number of advantages because they could go to forums and be introduced as elected officials, whereas I had to stand at the back of the room. But the first thing when people dismissed me early on, they said, you can't raise the money, you can't raise the money, you can't raise the money. And I thought, if one more person says that to me, but we raised it. I was a grassroots candidate. We raised it, but I know that's not the case for others. We had to have 24 house parties and fundraisers just in my primary, and sometimes I walked out without a check. They were discouraging nights, but we rode that roller coaster. We raised the money, and I thought, and I said it was going to be the first thing I do is co-sponsor campaign finance reform bills to lower some of the limits, and then to support efforts like your own, because it is warping the process. I see it now, even the issues that get the attention and that don't get the attention. So we know this is a monumental effort to try to talk about a constitutional amendment, but I think it's worth it. It's absolutely worth the effort. I commend each of you for supporting these efforts. And if nothing else, it is going to continue to raise awareness about the corporate influence, about the money influences at every level. We have now seen, I ran for the Assembly office, but many years ago I served on a school board. We ran a complete grassroots campaign then, and I was able to do it with just a few $1,000s. It was mostly shoe leather. No mailed ads, no robocalls, nothing, right? In the end, we won overwhelmingly, but now we see in Colorado that they're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on just school board races. And part of it is because of the privatization in education and the efforts to privatize. So there is a need. There's a need at every level, and the Citizens United, I don't think that Supreme Court ruling has taken on such a life of its own that I'm not sure that the everyday person is really understanding that underhanded influence and how detrimental that has been. I talked again with this group from the International Center here, and I did talk about how another reason I ran is because we can't keep squeezing out the middle class and working class from running for office. Yet if my husband and I did not have that, if we didn't have his income, I could have never run because I went 8 months without a paycheck because I had to leave. My job at that point was federally funded with the state, and I had to leave by law. So it's yet another, on a host of levels, we need change because we need to make sure that working class vote, working class voice, that voice is still there in the halls of Congress, the halls of our legislature. So again, that's a little of my story. It's just to, again, just one more anecdote in many, and thank you to each of you. I think this is a great fight. It's one worth having, and we need to get some sanity back into all of our campaigns, and that is by continuing to not make money the primary emphasis in those among those who are running for office or among those who are trying to influence policy matters. Thank you. Thank you.